today we are talking about scene optimization. Did you ever have a scene that took forever to just play back? Like moving a little thing would make it buffer for like 5 minutes? Well, today I'm going to show you a few ways to make your scene more workable into OpenGL. You know, some scenes are just very heavy and cannot be saved, but sometimes these little tricks I'm going to show you can help out. So we're going to see how to use the advanced display, and I'm also going to show you how to use the intermediate rendering approach. But before all that, I want to thank Zerl for letting me use some of his scenes from his amazing show called Monkey Wrench. Monkey Wrench is a very funny and badass indie show that is airing at the moment on YouTube. Episodes are coming here and there, and let me tell you, I love that thing. It's one of these series where you don't need 5 episodes to get in. Episode 1, you're already in the action. A lot of goofy things are going on, amazing action sequences, funny dialogues, funny bits, very lovable characters. Like, it's one of the few series that I'm like, oh, so far I like everyone. Made by a bunch of very cool people. It's just a very good time altogether, so I recommend going to check it out and see for yourself. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not, but give it a chance. So the scene I'm going to use today was boarded, animated, inked, and colored by Zerl himself. So I'll have all the credits and all the links to the show in the description below, so please check it out. I really encourage it. And yes, and now back to the tutorial. So I'm going to start with the quickest one. Don't wait for your scene to bottleneck and be slow for you to start doing this. It is just very useful. You want to go to your preferences. On a Mac, you have to go to like Harmony and go to preferences. But on a PC, you go to Edit, Preferences, and then if you navigate to Advanced, you're going to see the second choice is Advanced Display. What this does, once you activate it, is that instead of having one display drop down into your scene, it's going to give you one for your whole scene, of course, but also one for a specific zone of your scene, such as the camera view here and the timeline. So I could say, for example, I want to see all of my scene into the camera display, but into the timeline, I want to see just Shrike. So here I gave Shrike a display, and if I go to my timeline, instead of seeing all these layers, I could just focus on what I need and go to the display, find the Shrike display, and see all these layers. Now, of course, I'm using this scene that is already very light. It is a hand-drawn scene without texture, so it's already light to work with. But imagine that I have like 8 rigs in my scene with like 5,000 nodes each. If you have all this connected at all time, it means that your computer has to like see through all of these layers that would be there, so it's really not good for your computer. So it is a good habit once you get used to Harmony to work with advanced display, because then you can see this in your camera and this in your timeline. It's also amazing for lip sync, by the way. Sometimes I just put a display on. Like, all of my rigs have a display just on the head so that I can isolate the head from the rest to do like my lip sync and whatnot, so I'm just saying. And also, if you have an additional camera view, like I'm gonna create here, camera, you can have 2 cameras, one with the full scene, maybe one with just Shrike. So there's many things you can do with the advanced display. They're pretty cool. And they make your scene lighter. The second option is what I was referring to as intermediate rendering. What is this? Intermediate rendering is when you render your scene in layers, and then you composite everything back together in your scene. This is kind of what happens when you export any software's animation to like a third-party compositing software like After Effects or Nuke or something. And instead of working with like the rigs, you're working with an image sequence of the animation. So to do that, I'm going to use a composite to assemble all the elements I want together. In this case, I want to get Shrike and his chair together because it's just faster. So then I'm going to create a right node by pressing enter and finding my right node. I already have it here all set up, so I'm just going to show you what's in there. I'm going to see my properties of the right node, and basically all you want, like I said, is an image sequence. For image sequence, you need to just select a format. Now, there is a lot of different formats in Harmony, so which one should you take? I know that a first reflex for someone would be to use a PNG sequence, but that's not what I recommend. PNG sequences are great for like final export and all that, but if you're going to do intermediate rendering, I recommend the use of EXR. The format you're going to choose for your image sequence should be a format that is fast and lossless. I know most people are going to default to PNGs, but just beware, PNGs are a zipped format and they're kind of slow. TGAs are better for intermediate work, but what I would recommend is using a DPX or an EXR depending on your desired bit depth. So I recommend EXRs as the output format for this kind of export because they're pretty standard for compositing. That's what we use in a lot of different compositing softwares. And they're great because they're fast and lossless, and also that they allow you to maintain your 16-bit and float output that some other format would not allow. So if you're doing anything that is above 8 bits, EXR is usually a good choice. Harmony Pre-21 are all in 16 bits, so you'd lose info going to PNG anyway. You also want to be aware of encoding type. If you zipped compressed, it takes longer to work and render. So intermediate formats are often larger in size on purpose to maintain speed and avoid compression. So all you have to remember is choose EXR because it's a very good thing to do your intermediate rendering. And then that's it, you just close it. Wait, actually you have to also give it a name. It's important. So you give it a name, you close it, then you go to File, Export, you render it. I already rendered it because it's faster. And then you're gonna go to Import, get your images from your folder, click on the first one, then shift click on the last one, and open them. I'm not gonna do it because it takes time and I've already imported it, so I'm gonna show you just the final. But when you work in EXR, it's important that the transparency is set to straight, otherwise you're gonna not have transparency, so put it to straight. Then when you press OK, you're gonna have a image sequence here. I'm just gonna connect it to show you what it does. And I'm gonna unconnect my old bits. And you see, it just replaced it. You might need a little peg to make it the right size, but yeah, now you can just make your animation play and it's good. Just to remind you, this is if your scene is very heavy. If you have just a very quick animation, you don't need to do intermediate rendering, and it might actually harm your scene because these can be more heavy than a very simple vector layer, but they are less heavy than a very complex rig. So now you know, and you have your image sequence that is going to temporarily replace your rig that would be connected. So you unconnect it and you use the image sequence as a replacement. Usually I use them temporarily, but you can also composite them if you want in the end. But personally, I just use them as a temporary measure. Then before I render out my final, I unconnect them and I place the old animation back just to make sure that everything is perfect. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed and I'll see you again next time. Bye!